Hello, and welcome to Books and Beyond. My name is Jimmy Bennett. I'm your host, and we have a very special Books and Beyond tonight. We're on location at the Groton Public Library for the first in-person meeting for the Southeastern Connecticut and Authors Publishers Association, which has not met in person in 2 years. We've done a lot of Zoom, and we've had a lot of interesting guests from all over the country, but something about Zoom just doesn't have the same appeal as regular meetings. So today we're getting back together for the first time. I'm very excited. Soon people will be showing up, and we'll see who comes and talk to them as they roll in, see what they've been up to for the last couple of years. The pandemic's been very hard on everybody. It's slowed everything down, especially for writers. We can't get out and do our marketing and publishing and stuff. But in any case, we'll be back shortly and introduce the rest of the CAPA crowd. Thank you. Okay, right before we start here, I'd like to give 3 shout-outs to people that made this happen today. First is the Groton Public Library for graciously allowing us to use their meeting room for our meetings. And second, to the SEC TV station, the local station here in Groton, who lent me the camera equipment to do it, and to Glen Rippel, the man behind the camera. Thank you very much. Hi, we're back, and I am here with Patty Brooks, the director of the Southeastern Connecticut Authors and Publishers Association, the director of our group. One thing I really want to say from my heart off the top is I want to thank you, Patty, for everything you did during the pandemic.
Oh.
You kept things going. You kept the Zoom meetings going. You had a lot of nice, interesting guests. It was nice to see people from all over the country.
Yeah.
It really expanded the thing. And I think because of you, we're still together. Mm-hmm. And I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much.
Because the group means a lot to me. It always has.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me what some of the challenges. How did you end up getting the good guests? And
Actually, going via Zoom, I can talk to anybody in Timbuktu or wherever. So my goal was to find somebody that I thought had something worthwhile to say. As you noted, over the months, we often had people that had done PowerPoint programs, and it really came off really nicely. The plus of Zoom, I can choose people across the country. And when we meet in person, we're limited on who we can. I can't get somebody from California to spend a night with us. And most people, when I do get them to come talk here, they'd like to have their gas paid for and maybe be taken for dinner and so on and so forth. And Zoom, it's just hey, Joe, will you speak to us? Sure. When?
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yep.
And so it's important for the writers to have an in-person one-on-one, I think. But the choice of being able to choose really worthwhile presentations is much better with Zoom. But we would only get 4 or 5, 6 at the most people attending.
Yeah, Zoom is tough for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I did attend the meetings.
Yeah, you did most of
and I
them.
thought they were all very interesting. But sometimes it's painful. I mean, it's just I don't know. You just staring at that little computer screen, and you can't really interact and see people, and how they work. I mean, I always found one thing when I first came here, when I first came to CAPA, 2-3 years ago, I hadn't even written my first book. I was only halfway through it, and I got so much inspiration just from being around other authors and stuff, and they taught me a lot of things that was good to know.
Good.
Not only about how to write and stuff, but also who to look to get something formatted, or how to get book covers.
Who's a good editor.
Who's a good editor. And they also burst a lot of my bubbles, which was great because as every writer thinks their first book is going to go
It's the best.
Zoom right to the top, and they were going to be rich and famous, and it was going to be just life on easy street after that. But it's just not. I mean, you have to have a passion to write. Sure. And you have to have a discipline in equal amounts.
Okay, absolutely.
And I think I found a lot of that here in CAPA.
Yeah, no, CAPA is worthwhile. They don't know where they're really going right now with more maybe innovative things because the pandemic did hurt, and they want to be a help for book signings, for lack of a better word, but they don't have any real plans. And there is a fair amount of shakeup on who's working for CAPA right
Right.
now, and but that would happen.
Well, it's a tough.
Yeah.
It's been a tough 2 years.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're not 100% out of it.
No,
Either.
no.
I mean, I had it. I
Yeah.
got vaccinated. I got boosted,
Yeah.
and then I got it again.
Oh my.
Like a month and a half ago. It was mild. I mean, it was
Yeah.
bad, but I mean, it's still. But it's really hurt a lot. Like you say, book signings,
Yeah.
events,
Yeah.
stuff like that, which we rely on to get out in the public and to get our work out.
Absolutely. And I really thought, in fact, I was pushing members early on in the pandemic. I said, we're going to be stuck in this for a while. I hope I get a new book from everybody by the time it's over.
Right.
But that didn't really happen.
Yeah, I thought about that a lot too.
I mean, we're stuck at home. We say we want to write. Hey, come on.
I did get a book done, and I worked on a few more.
That
I've
was
been
good.
working on some more ideas and stuff, but it's.
Sure. With
But you're
everything.
right. It's not prolific, but I'm hoping to too. Maybe tonight we'll find out
Yep.
just what people have been up to and
Yes.
what they might have accomplished.
That sounds
I know a
good.
few people have put out
Yeah.
things. And now I'm back in the studio.
Yes. I
With
think
the
that's
show,
great.
which is
Yeah.
good. So I'm hoping to have
Yeah.
a lot of the CAPA members back on. See what they're up to and what they've been doing, and so things are going to start to open up a little bit.
Well,
And we have an event coming up, right?
Oh, yes, a small event in Niantic. We have something that we're calling Sip and Sign. It's at Dev's Restaurant in Niantic. And we're only going to have like 5 or 6 writers who have books that are set in Connecticut, thinking that we're talking to the summer people and maybe they'd like to read about. Granted, they should have more time on their hands.
Right.
And so let's pick up a book and read about our neck of the woods.
Right.
That was my goal for it.
And that's August 1st, right?
August 1st.
Okay.
And
All right.
it's both the authors and the restaurant are donating some money to Connecticut Animal House, which is a dog rescue.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the meeting. We'll be back in a little bit as soon as more people file in.
Welcome, everybody, to their first 2022 Southeast CAPA meeting. It's great to see old faces. It's great to see new faces joining us, and it's great to be here in person at last. And I'm Patty Brooks. I live in East Lyme. I'm technically the director for the Southeast chapter of CAPA. I write novels. Basically, I thought I did. I sold my first article when I was 16 for $4. So that got me hooked. And this last couple of years, when we've all been housebound, I branched out and wrote some children's stories. So part of our thing is to each of you, we want to hear a little bit about you or your books, and we would also like your happy dollar so we can offer refreshments at future meetings. Okay? You hand it on to Judy?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good to see everyone. My name is Judy Ricketts White. I'm a graphic designer, web designer, and illustrator, and author, and publisher now. So I have 2 books that I've written, the Slater Mountain book series. They're for young readers. They're set in somewhere fictional out west, the Slater Mountain book series about a girl, her horses, family, and friends. They're just fun fictional adventures. And I have horses, like Patty had horses for years. And so what I've tried to do is put good, solid horse handling principles and weave them into the stories to make them more realistic. I also published, my mom was a writer. She was a journalist, a reporter, and an English teacher during her career. And she wrote poetry her whole life. And she and I worked on her poetry manuscript, but we didn't quite get it ready to publish before she passed. So I put that together, finished putting it together, and published that right as everything was shutting down in March of 2020. So I have that book, and it's called Count Me Never Lost. And she was a New York Times published poet. and she wrote one of the poems in the book, The Ballad of JFK. She sent a copy off to, she wrote it after his assassination, and she sent a copy off to then Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy. And she received a signed thank you note back from him, and I've included that in the book. So I am, during the pandemic, I'm about almost finished with the third book in the Slater Mountain series. But during the pandemic, I ended up working on books for other authors. I ended up editing, designing, doing layout for books for other authors who were then published by themselves or other publishing companies. And I also published 2 books for authors that I designed and laid out and did the publishing of. One was a children's book, Jig Gets Lost, which has won an award. And my Slater Mountain books have won awards, Moonbeam Children's Book Awards. And then the other one is The Owl Watchman by Freetha Lawrence. And that, she's an artist, and so that's a book of her art. And that book has won an award. So I've got several books that I've designed and published for other people who have won awards. So the publishing end of my business expanded during the whole shutdown. So it's been exciting, and so my happy dollar is about all of that. Certainly not about the pandemic. That's goodbye and good riddance to that. So I will pass it on to Nancy.
Well, thank you, Judy. I am Nancy Butler. I have 3 award-winning books that have been out since 2012, and I did them over a series of years. And I think the pandemic has made a major difference. I'm an international speaker. I'm also a delegate to the United Nations for the Commission on the Status of Women. And when COVID happened, the internet just expanded huge. And it's been really good for my international speaking business, which sells books, which is really, really nice. I mean, I've been able now, I just finished a talk to 50 women in Mongolia. I've spoken to India now, South Africa. I've spoken. Well, what's interesting is Mongolia, they had 200 people in their organization. They only had 50 at the meeting because those were the 50 that spoke English. And then they asked me to record it and send them a copy, and they're getting it translated so they can have the other 150 listen to it, which will be really amazing. And with the United Nations, I mean, just to give you an idea of what the internet has done, I used to be at the UN with about 10,000 women. Now, with COVID shut down, we have 50,000 women on Zoom all over the world. And did you know that Zoom translates? So I spent 75 hours in March in 2 weeks on Zoom sessions at the UN, in sessions from all over the world in all different languages, and that's how I connected with the Mongolian people. And because you put in the chat where you're from and what you do and that kind of thing, and if you have a great website, which mine just crashed and Judy's building me a new one. If you have a good website, I mean, that works. And then I'll be in Denver the first week of July, speaking to 500 female financial advisors. I'll be the keynote speaker there, selling books again. So if you can speak, if you can get out and speak to clubs or organizations or even local places, it's a real good opportunity to be able to sell your books. And that is me. So I guess that's some happy dollars for that one. Oh, and I'm in Waterford, Connecticut.
Thank you, Nancy. Hi, I'm Jane DeRosier. I'm from Baltic, Connecticut. I've written 3 books. It's a trilogy called Gone Fishing, The Hook, the Line, and the Sinker. I brought the sinker with me today. And I've also, my happy dollar is because I just finished a new book of short stories and poems. It's called The Summer of Strawberry Rhubarb Pie. And I've titled it A Collection of Stories and Poems from the Heart. So kind of reflections of life and observations on things. And so that is my happy dollar. And I'm happy to see everybody here and that we're all back out selling our books. I'm going to be at Rose Arts in Norwich on Saturday. So I'm looking at day day shows and things like that, as opposed to being someplace for like 3 days and God only knows, what happens on those 3 days. So I'm happy to see everybody, and over to you.
Thank you so much. My name is Harry Thomas. I guess I'm the new kid on the block. During the pandemic, I've always wanted to write a book. So when the pandemic happened, I seized upon that opportunity to grab my camera, take some pictures, and to put a book together. I was fortunate enough to submit to a publisher, and the publisher liked what I put together. And my first book, called Peace by the Sea, is photographs that I took during the pandemic and before the pandemic. Once this book was done, I realized that I had enough material to put together a second book called Finding Peace by the Sea. Both books are inspiring images and quotes for living your best life. So 11 months after I put out my first book, I put out my second book. I am an actor, a photographer, and I teach social work on the college level. So writing a book has been quite an experience. Marketing a book is even more of an experience. So I figured that this would be a good place for me to be, so I can, bounce off ideas with like-minded people here in this area. And I also live in Waterford. Mm-hmm.
I'm Jessie Mae Kessler, and I'm also a newbie. And I have written 2 books, one of which has been published for about 4 years and is on Amazon.com. It is A Bird and the Dragon, their love story, a memoir. All 3 of my planned books are stories about my life, actually, because when I was about 10 years old, I got a chance to meet my mother's oldest brother, who was Ralph Moody, and he wrote bestsellers in the 50s, one of which was Little Britches, and people may have heard of Little Britches. Anyhow, he came to visit, and this little girl fell madly in love with him, and he with me, and he kind of became my mentor over time. And one of his strongest edicts was write about what you know. Don't write about something that you have to fudge. Write about something you know. So I chose to write memoirs, and I certainly know them. The book that is just getting ready to come out, probably will come out towards the end of this month or the beginning of next month, is called Bitsy's Story, Healing the Pain of Silence. And it's about the little girl who at 5 years old got told that she had rheumatic fever, and her journey of cure was 6 months of total bed rest. Now, we didn't have a TV, so there was no TV. I hadn't learned to read yet. I wasn't allowed out of bed. I couldn't get any toys. I couldn't go eat with my family, any of that. It was flat in bed for 6 months. And this is written by the little girl. And I wrote it quite a while ago, and I sent it out to about 27 different publishers, and they all turned it down. But towards the end, I began to get some notes on the bottom of it. Reasonable manuscript, we're filled up with this type of book at the moment, and the last 2 said, no publisher could publish this book to adults because it's written by the child as a first book. So with that in mind, I had a professional editor go through it, and she went halfway through it, and she said, this must be turned into a third person. So I turned it into a third person. And when I got done, it was absolutely dead. It had died. It died on arrival. So we put it in the closet, put it away, and waited until I wrote the first book, which is actually the third book in the series. So that's my story, and it's been slow getting it published because I chose to go with a publisher, not a publisher marketer. So now I have all the marketing to do, which has me terrified. But anyhow, that's where we are. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Greg Gilmartin. Had a long career as a radio announcer, television producer, and during that time, you had to write a little bit. Sometimes it was 30-second stuff. Sometimes it was ad-libbing. And then it got serious, and somewhere around 2010, I did my first book, which was about what they call writer's embellishment in relation to my real passion, which is sailboat racing. And it was all about a crew getting involved with a Colombian drug dealer and going off into the jungles, and it involved some military stuff and, you know, making up fantasies as a young boy and a old man who can't quite do what you write about. So that got me started into the writing part. And as a video producer, COVID came along, and I had a hotel show running in about 40 hotels around here, and they shut down. So my program, which was running all the time, was being viewed by nobody. So that gave me a little more time to start writing. Got a couple of other books, Spy Island, which is a little bit of a sailing thing, but it's more about a guy steals a secret from a local sub manufacturer, and the Russians convince him that they have to get the secret. He runs away to Block Island. So if you're into Block Island, there's a lot of details in here, and one of my dollars goes to the Southeast Lighthouse Foundation, because I just was over there last week, and they're going to start selling it in the museum shop there, because there's a good section all about the old lighthouse when they moved it back in the early 90s. As I said, I'm a sailboat racer, and I came back to that. Can't sail in jail. Every legend starts with a little lie, but it needs some truth if it's going to fly. You may not have recalled, but in the 70s, there was a major marijuana smuggling operation that was run by a guy who happened to be a sailor, and he happened to sail with some friends of mine, so I got some inside story. But again, writer's embellishment. It's a novel. As I told his wife, it's a novel, and the names may have been changed, but it's all about that group, him trying to get his smuggling operation going, and then a bunch of other people, sailboat racers, a couple of Albanians who are trying to make it with a gas and go, and it's all about chasing the American dream, whatever your goal might be. And finally, my next novel, hopefully August, I'm looking for it to be released, and it's called Castle Fires, and it's about a young woman who inherits her father's fortune, but she's never met him. And she suddenly is thrown into a small town where he lives, and all the small town personalities that are mixing in with a multimillionaire international invention guy who apparently was murdered. So it's like Agatha Christie meets Michael Crichton, and there's all sorts of spiritual stuff going on that helps her solve the mystery. Coming soon.
Thanks. I sail too, so I'll be interested in those. So I'm Jim Friedlander, and I started writing in college, and then my career took me away from writing. I was building houses and taught school for a while, and did some sailing. I was worked on the sailboat Brilliant out of the Mystic Seaport, and did a bunch of things. But anyway, when I started having some time, when I started to slow down a little bit, I started to get back to writing fiction, which is always something that I've really wanted to do. And I grew up with it because my father was an author. And so, I'm sorry. Oh, boy. Sorry about that. Oh, boy.
That's the publisher calling.
Yeah. I need to shut this thing off. There we go. So anyway, in college I was a history major, so I got into writing historical fiction, and so the first book I wrote was called Soul Passage, and one of the things that I feel deeply about is race relations in this country and how they've been neglected and just not understood very well. I think now there's much more emphasis on it. But anyway, so my first book is called Soul Passage, and it starts out on a plantation in South Carolina and goes on from there. And my latest book is a sequel to this one. But anyway, wanting to try different types of writing. The one I wrote after that was about Trump's wall, and so that's a satire. And then I enjoyed writing that. So the next book I did was a sort of a historical political satire called The Castle, which is it's a humorous book, but it's also a satire on modern times. And then the last book I did was called Shooting Jesse James. And this is really, I think, very pertinent to contemporary times because it's about making of heroes and media. So Shooting Jesse James, it's not about the shooting with a gun. It's about a photographer who wants to make a hero out of Jesse James. And at a time when the South has lost the war and is looking for heroes. And as we all know, there was a lot of that going on after the war, a lot of statuary and that kind of thing, trying to build up the cause of the South. So, and now I've just finished another book, which is a sequel to the first one, and it carries on with one of the characters in the first book. The first book was about three generations of the same family, and this picks up on one of those characters from one of those generations. And again, I've really struggled to try to promote these books. They're all published on Amazon, and I'm not very media savvy, and it's really been a struggle to try to get these books. The people who've read them have really enjoyed them, and I've had a lot of compliments on them. But it's really difficult. So I'm hoping to find some help here. So yeah, I'm looking forward to hanging out with these people and maybe getting some helpful advice.
It's an amazingly prolific group. It's really quite amazing. I'm Glen. I'm from Mystic, Connecticut. Originally from Michigan. We moved here about 13 years ago now. And in 2019, I published my first novel. It's the first of a trilogy, and it's called Celtic Crossing. So that one is about a grandmother and an Irish grandmother and her grandchild that are part of a long Irish lineage plagued by cancers. So I'm a childhood cancer specialist by training and drug developer by second career and author by fourth career. But that one is about the family cancer syndrome in this particular family. And as the child is dying, the grandmother goes on a quest via a scholar priest who's on sabbatical in Dublin to find a holy relic that had cured generations of their ancestors, and it had disappeared in 1866. It's the Curing Cross of St. Patrick, which has an interesting background. So that's the first novel. And then during COVID, I'm about 40% of the way through the second novel of the series, and I'm trying to decide how much I want to. I shouldn't call it a series. It's a proper trilogy. I was originally thinking of just going straight from the last chapter of the first book into the first chapter of the second book and making no apologies and not really reiterating anything. And I thought, well, I really can't do that. Because the first book wasn't billed as the first book of a trilogy, because I was a new author. So I kind of reiterated some of it, but it's better to read the first book first. The second and the third book are going to be that way. The first one will, the second one will stop, and the third one will begin. So, but I did want to touch back on what had been said about drugs in the sea, because I have an interesting story that has nothing to do with a novel. But my wife and I, when we first visited Maine, where we have a summer place now, but first visited Maine in 1984, we drove her Plymouth TC3, which is a hatchback, out from Michigan to Maine, and we were in the Bar Harbor area. And if you've been to Bar Harbor, about the only place you can see the sea in Bar Harbor is in Bar Harbor, and if you're outside of that, it's very difficult. So we were going everywhere we could to see glimpses of the sea, and we ended going out to this little point, and we kept going, and there was this residential street. It looked like someplace in Kalamazoo or something, and we saw this man standing there, and we saw the ocean, and we said, "Where are we?" And he said, "You've reached the end of the world." And he said, "I'm selling these lobster traps for $5, and I'll throw in a buoy and rope." We said, "Okay." So we opened the back and threw it in there, and then on our way back to Michigan, we went through Canada, and we got to Windsor and Detroit, and the Detroit, the U.S. Customs stopped us, and they were looking in the back, and they were looking in the front, and he said, "Get out of your car." Said, "Okay," and he went on the back, and he said, "What's that?" Open the back. And so he opened it, and he said, "What is that?" And I said, "The lobster trap." And he said, "What are you doing with a lobster trap?" I said, "We were on vacation." And he said, "Why did you bring it home?" And it's a souvenir. We paid $5 for it. And he said, "Open it up." So I opened it up and then closed it. And he said, "Okay, you can go." And I said, "Why were you interested in a lobster trap?" And he said, "That's drug drops. That's the way they get drugs back then, 1984. And so they were wondering what I was doing with that, but maybe I should write a story about it.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. We're all writing it now in our heads.
Up here, they used to bring sailboats up the Connecticut River. Imagine a 40-foot sailboat that is packed to the gills down below with like 2,000 pounds of marijuana bales. And then they pull them up to one of the gunk holes and they'd offload it. The Coast Guard would only catch them if they wouldn't recognize the flag, the country flag they were actually flying, which is how they got caught in the end.
Okay, I'm Kathy Spencer. I live in Groton, and I am probably one of the original members of Southeast CAPA. You think I'd have 50 books or 100 books by now. I have not published one. I did publish a little article, a little story in a little magazine from a writing class. I've done some poetry. But recently, I took on a 1,000-word-a-day challenge of writing for like 15 days, and because I needed some motivation to get started. Like getting started was an issue. I journal and I write, not on my own, but I needed just to get started, and in the discipline. So I did that, and then I had my knee replaced. So that kind of put that on hold for 2 months. But that's my goal, is to go back to writing consistently every day. And I know something will be out of it. I mean, there's a lot of life experience. So how I'm going to put that out, I don't know. Probably fiction, I think. But it's always good to be here because it's such an inspirational group. And I would recommend anybody, if they haven't written, if they haven't put anything out, to just come and absorb the information, the networking, the inspiration, really, from everybody. It's a great group. Thank you.
There's no coffee in there, is it? No, I mean, I don't want to sit down.
There wasn't. Yeah, a little bit.
Hello, my name's Matthew Goldman, and also known as Constant Waterman. And after writing poetry and plays for years and years and years, I finally went back to the love of my life, which is sailing, and started writing memoirs about sailing. And finally put together a book of memoirs, and the first book was called The Journals of Constant Waterman, and it was mostly just boating and messing around the Connecticut River, which is where I grew up. And my second book was called Moonwind at Large, and Moonwind was my sloop. And I used to go around and terrorize Narragansett Bay and Buzzards Bay and, chase mermaids, the usual. And when I got tired of doing that, I started illustrating, and I illustrated my 2 boating books. And when I got done doing that, I wrote and illustrated 2 books of local landmarks in the area. Okay. And if you may have seen them, they're all over the place. And they make good, they're good for shimmying up your dining room table, if nothing else. And then I wrote a 5th book, and it was all memoirs and poetry and more lies, the usual. And I've written 2 children's books, and I stopped writing more or less about 3 years ago, and I've been doing nothing but illustrating now. And I got tired of doing straight lines, so, I like more voluptuous things. This is my inspiration over here. And I was a member of CAPA for several years, and I haven't been back for several years. I don't know.
But Matt, now that you are doing mostly illustrations, would you be available for some of us writers for our book?
Oh, of course, yeah, I take commissions. Yeah, I can do anything from cartooning type things to fine art. And I mostly work in black and white, but, I can be persuaded otherwise if you throw enough money at me. And, and I'm going to be one of Patty's authors at Devs on Main Street in Niantic on August 1st. Yeah, anyway. So, okay. Now I'll give the mic to my better half here.
I'm Paula Goldman. I'm definitely a newbie. In 2020, I experienced heart issues and ended up having a triple bypass. The amazing thing was I wasn't afraid. I knew I was going to be fine. And as I was going into anesthesia, a spirit appeared to me, and he was well known to me because I'm a psychic. And he said, "You got this?" And I brought some friends, and I looked up, and in the room was every spirit of every patient I had helped cross over into spirit for 50 years. And I said to them, "What are you doing here?" And they're like, "We came to help, and we came to say thank you." And I was out. That's the last thing I remember. When I was recovering from that, another spirit showed up and said, "Listen, you've got 20 good years left. Don't waste them. Enough people have died. It's time to write that book." So I said, okay. So I am writing a book called Out of the Victim Box, A Woman's Personal Journey to Healing. It's for women who've been molested, raped, whatever. Basically life lessons I have learned and who I've learned them from. People in my life. As I preface the beginning, the names have been changed to protect the innocent as well as the guilty. Fortunately for my sake, most of them have died, but not for everybody else. So I hope to reach lots of women. As I decided to create this book, an email showed up, a Divine Writing course by Kathleen McGovern and Astara Jane, who lives right in East Haddam. And it was like, okay, there's your sign, girl. There's your sign. So I am about a quarter of the way through. That's what my happy dollar is for. My voice will finally be heard, and I'm hoping to hear other women's stories and write another book after this.
I'm excited for you.
I am too, thank you. I would love to talk. I would love to talk to you, Nancy, yes. I would love to talk. I've had a lot of experience, and for most of my life, people have said, yeah.
female genital mutilation, all that.
This
Mhm.
is what networking is about.
Right,
Guys.
yeah. Well, people have been telling me I should write a book for years because my life was interesting to them. And I kept saying, too many people have to die. Well, they're all dead now.
All right, I'm Jimmy Bennett. Actually, the host of this show that we're taping tonight, Books and Beyond. It's on SEC TV. You can find it on YouTube. I'm very excited about being back here in CAPA for the first time in a couple years. I am an author myself. I've written 4 books. My first 3 books were mysteries. They're set at Gillette's Castle. As you know, William Gillette was the man who brought Sherlock Holmes to America. And with his fame and fortune, he built this beautiful castle on the Connecticut River. So in my stories, when murders or crimes happen, he takes over a stage persona as Sherlock Holmes and goes about solving the crime. But I am especially proud during the pandemic, my life took a U-turn, and I wrote a book really from my heart. I use the same characters, the same setting, but it's more in a hallmark love. It's about faith, it's about people connecting, understanding. I'm very proud of it. I think it showed another side of things. So anyways, that was called The Castle Christmas, and I actually used my pen name, James Michael Walker, for my first 3 books, but this book came from the heart, so I used my name, Jimmy Bennett, in the thing. Got tons of things going, writing and stuff. And of course, now that the pandemic's over, I'm coming back with Books and Beyond. We're doing in-studio shows. Anybody who'd like to be on the show from this group or anywhere, just contact me. We'll set up a time and a date. Do it. I try to help people, I say, personify their aspirations. And so my happy dollar is just to be back here with everybody. It's great to see everybody again, and I can't wait. Now, we do have this room booked for the next 6 months.
Nice.
Okay, and we're going to try to probably go 6 months past that. And as things move along, we'll get back into some of our old habits, hopefully. And I want to thank everybody for coming tonight and for hanging in there. Oh, pardon me. Hey, how are you?
Good. So, want me to introduce myself?
Yeah.
All right, I'm Robin. I'm the president of CAPA, and I'm really glad to be here tonight with you guys. I write, this is my partner, John, she'll introduce herself, but we write together as a team, and we write urban fantasy and rock star fantasies, and we've been self and traditionally published, 2 novels, number of short stories, etc. But my main gig at this moment is president of CAPA. So as your night continues, please, I'm willing to answer any questions that you have or chat with you about anything that you want to chat about. We have a lot of things that hopefully will be exciting for you and the other members of CAPA as well. And I hope to be a face that you see frequently. I will tell you, I teach at Naugatuck Valley. I'm a professor there. And I suspect that the night I teach is the night of your meeting. Oh, no. I thought it was Tuesdays.
No, this is strange because it's the first time and Monday was a holiday and so on.
Then I am totally free. So I will, when the weather allows, I'll be here because I want to also be of assistance and a presence for you guys as well.
No, it's great to have you.
Oh, that's fine. Oh, that's John. I usually do the talking.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate this.
And we really have Jim to thank for putting tonight together and for pushing, saying, don't you think it's time that we get this?
I know I got a lot of feedback from people. Unfortunately, tonight, because it was the holiday,
Yeah.
We had to switch the date around a couple of times because the library wasn't open on Monday. So unfortunately, a few of our members couldn't make it. But they plan on coming to the next one. So please, like I say, we've supported each other all these years, and we can continue to support each other. I mean, I was talking to Patty about this earlier. When I first came to CAPA 3 years ago, I was halfway through a book. I hadn't even, I wasn't even sure how I was going to write it and how I was going to finish, but just the inspiration I got, the advice I got, the help I got from people, really, moved me right along. And I think we can do that more. It's tougher now, let's face it, right, with the marketing stuff, right? It's harder now after the pandemic, things are going to start opening up again. So we got to help each other. We got to, be here at events, put things together. I'm hoping to put together an author signing up in Gillette's Castle. And when it does, I'll let everybody know. It's a beautiful spot. Go up there on the thing, and they get a lot of traffic, a lot of people. So hopefully, that will be fun and, do a little bit.
Are you aware of the websites that you can go to that list all the events in Connecticut?
No.
Okay, I have the links for those, and I can send them to you, and you can pass them on to everyone.
Also, I found
It tells you like even a year in advance when they are, where they are, the times they are.
Good.
And you can click on it and then find out how much it costs to be there and all of that.
Yeah. I just found.
Know the links off the top of your head?
No.
I also just found a Facebook page that's Connecticut Fairs or something.
Oh, There's that for
and,
sure.
And that has some things listed as well.